Hi everyone, Emily Mercado here. Again to share the next part in the spiritual world, stage one of the gospel seminar. Today we're going to be talking about heaven, okay, and what that means for us as Christians. A few housekeeping items. First and foremost, as always, I want to let you guys know that I'm not a trained theologian. I am just a person sharing the good news and the gospel with you guys. The Bible translation that I use, for consistency's sake, is the NIV version. I mean, you're free to use any translation you wish, but just again, for consistency's sake, the NIV is the translation that's being used. This seminar was developed by Pastor Soon Ki Kang and Pastor Joe Kim. Mother-daughter, and pastors at my church, the Church of Jesus in Paramus, New Jersey. Even though this seminar was developed by them, I'm a humble messenger sharing the gospel and the word, and this seminar with you guys. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about heaven and what it means to be in heaven. You may think, when you think about what heaven is, you may think that heaven is only one place, only one place to which you can go. But there are two kinds of heavens. The visible heaven, which is basically what we can see with our eyes, the material world, the firmament, the universe, and the invisible heaven, which is the spiritual world. Things we can't see with our eyes. If you look at these circles here, the white circle here in the center is the first heaven. That's earth. Okay, the blue circle here just outside that is the material heaven, what we know as the universe. And you can see there's a clearly defined line around the material heaven, aka the universe. And outside that, in this white space here, is the spiritual heaven. That's where Jesus is. And it's important to understand that that is where Jesus is, in the spiritual heaven. Right? And, that's kind of a good segue for our next point of discussion, the spiritual heaven. In 2 Chronicles 2:6, it says, "But who is able to build a temple for him, since the heavens, even the highest heavens, cannot contain him?" And in 2 Chronicles 6:18, "But will God really dwell on earth with men? The heavens, even the highest heavens, cannot contain you." It's important to understand that the spiritual heaven, that was the very first thing that God created. He created the spiritual heaven as a place for him and eventually Jesus to reign. In Hebrews 1:2, it says, "But in these last days he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, and through whom he made the universe." And again, in Colossians 1:16, it says, "For by him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things were created by him and for him." Those of you who follow the Catholic faith, that should sound very familiar to you. All things were created, visible and invisible, as part of the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, and where Catholics acknowledge that all things were created by God. And God created the visible and invisible worlds for the Son, for Jesus. Visible and invisible heaven, visible and invisible things, thrones and authorities created not for angels, but for the Son. And God, it should be understood that God himself does not need heaven. Rather, he needs it for the Son, Jesus. And heaven was prepared for the Son to later rule over all things. Okay, the throne is placed. The spiritual heaven is often referred to as the right hand of God, and that can be found in Mark 16:19. In it, God put his name, his throne, and his glory, and he made angels to worship. That can be found in Psalms 103:19. Okay, it was created for the Son to be enthroned and reign and to serve the Father, which can be found in Hebrews 8:1. And the spiritual heaven, or a copy of the spiritual heaven, is where the high priest serves God. In Hebrews 9:23-24, it describes what happens when the high priest serves God. And, the throne, the temple on earth is a copy. It's actually a copy of the in heaven. It's necessary for copies of the heavenly things to be purified with sacrifices, but the heavenly things themselves was with better sacrifices. So on earth, how those heavenly things are purified is through blood, through sacrificial blood. Christ himself did not enter the man-made sanctuary, which is a copy. Rather, he entered heaven itself to appear for us in God's presence. The true spiritual heaven is where Jesus Christ, as the high priest, went before us, and he serves God, and we follow Jesus to enter there. And it's a place where the most glorious and highest one sits on the throne, reigns, and serves God. God receives only the flawless and spotless sacrifice, i.e. firstborn livestock, pure, blameless, spotless, always the best. It's an earthly sacrifice that's made by hands every single year. They gave sacrifices of flesh and material, and flawless and spotless animals, where in the heavenly sanctuary, a spiritual sacrifice had to be given, where Jesus gave his own flesh as a sacrifice for us humans. Now, this is a diagram of the earthly sanctuary. Outside here is the altar of burnt offering and the laver here. And then inside, there's pillars, a lampstand, the table of showbread, the altar, and the altar of incense. This is all in the holy place, where the priests go, to do their normal, regular services. But back here behind the veil, which is this dark line here, this is the most holy place, where only the high priest can go in there once per year to present the blood of sacrifice. The pillars, and then this black box right here is the ark with the mercy seat and cherubim. That's where the ancient Jews believed that God actually was. So this is the earthly sanctuary. It's a copy of the heavenly sanctuary. So what Jesus did for us, in Hebrews 9:25-26, Jesus made a sacrifice of his body once for all, so that this every year, this yearly sacrifice, didn't have to be made every year. And it says, but now he has appeared once for all at the end of ages to do away with sin by the sacrifice of himself. Jesus entered the true heaven as the high priest and served God with his blood. Now, we as followers of Jesus, followers of the Christian faith, we have our hearts sprinkled with his blood, and therefore we put his blood before us, and we follow Jesus, and we enter there also to serve God. And think about how glorious it would be to serve God. And as always, I have a series of discussion questions. Did you ever think of spiritual heaven or heaven this way? Do you want to go there? How much does heaven mean to you in your heart and in your everyday life? What do you think keeps you from believing, dreaming, and preparing for the life in heaven? What can you do about it? And as always, a closing prayer. Lord, thank you for all you have done. I want to enter into your glorious kingdom and live with you forever. Let us never give up on our dream and hope in heaven. I hope you got a lot out of the session, dear listener, and I hope that in some way this discussion has touched your heart. I will be praying for you all daily, as I hope you pray for me, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you and God bless.